This episode of our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by Zapper. Zapper is one of the world's leading XR companies. Over the past 12 years, they've won numerous awards for memorable campaigns. They've democratized AR by making tools and SDKs that anyone can use. And they created Zapbox, the world's most affordable mixed reality headset. Most recently, Zapper worked with Unilever to create an enhanced QR code called Accessible QR, which enables packaged goods to speak to the blind and partially sighted. If you're thinking XR, give the team at Zapper a call or visit zapper.com to see how they can help you on your XR journey. Good morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink with Rony Abovitz for This Week in XR. Ted is not with us this week, and Rony is on the road, so he's going to be audio only this week. Our guest...
Good morning.
Hey, Rony. Our guest is Marta Marciszewicz, who's head of machine learning at Anything World, a company that is using AI to automate animation for video games and other media. How are you doing this morning, Ted? Rony, sorry.
Wait. Hi, I'm Ted. All is good. It's actually I'm on the highway in Florida while we're doing the podcast, and it's beautiful blue skies, 93 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's beautiful here in Los Angeles, and it's only about 65. So a
Ooh.
little earlier in the day, though, so we may catch up as the day goes on. It looks like summer is starting to set in here. So in the news, Matterport, our favorite 3D scanning company, has been acquired. You know, they went public through a SPAC several years ago. They were purchased by another public company, which I'd never heard of, but apparently is worth some $50 billion or so, the CoStar Group, for $1.6 billion. So 1.6 billion. I know we're talking about, stock in publicly traded companies, so it's not exactly dollars, but that's still incredible valuation for Matterport. When I started writing about XR in 2016, it looked like Matterport may not make it because they had relied on this hardware play where they were making special 3D cameras. This was before smartphones could do, LiDAR scanning and use other depth technologies. But they started with their own cameras. They brought in this guy, RJ Pittman, who was an early executive at eBay and a very, very sharp guy. I actually interviewed him in 2018 or 2019. He's a very nice guy, very smart guy. And he has guided this company to being a smartphone-based company where people are scanning and storing 3D spaces like crazy, particularly people in the real estate industry. It's sort of a default go-to for that industry. And they have some ridiculous, like 60 million interior spaces or some crazy number like that actually in their on their servers and databases. So,
Charlie, that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Someone bought them for this 3D data play, thinking that that's going to be a machine learning input or somehow part of the metaverse. It's like a bet on that, right?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And that was what RJ Pittman was promoting. So anyway, congrats, RJ, and the other people at Matterport. They went through, going public through a SPAC is a kind of messy thing. So, so they weathered that. They went public, which probably left their investors very well off. Those guys must love RJ Pittman because he took their company, which was struggling and worth maybe $100 million 7 or 8 years ago, and now it's worth $1.6 billion. So, RJ Pittman, enjoy your private jet and your house on a Caribbean island and your getaway in Hawaii. So you deserve it, and I'm sure your investors love you. So moving on.
It's a big win, Charlie.
Moving on. So Stanford Computer Science produces yet another AI company, this one called Lamini, founded by Stanford professor Sharon Zhu and Greg Demos, who is a former NVIDIA guy. They're backed by AMD, and the head of Stanford computer science, the famous Andrew Ng, and Figma co-founder Dylan Field, Dropbox CEO Drew Houston, and OpenAI co-founder Andre Karpathy. So all superstars. They are focused on building models for enterprises that can be air gapped and protected and still run hallucination free on a company's proprietary data. So it sounds like something companies may need. Um, and of course, in this new world, $25 million, not that much of a big raise, but for an AI company, but it sounds like they're going to
No,
be
still good. Still good.
they're going to be a contender. Neurable, you remember our friends at Neurable? They're doing BCI, but minimally invasive
Yes.
BCI. They raised 13 million, bringing in their total financing to 43 million, and they're using it to build these sort of headphones that use brain bone connectivity and other AI-ish and technologies to improve what we're the kinds of devices we're already doing and wearing. So pretty interesting. Not quite sure what their product is going to look like in the marketplace, but pretty interesting idea. Do you know much about these guys?
I know a little bit about them. I mean, the idea of like the passive, not going into your brain and shoving all wires or a mesh on top of the brain, but the sort of outside. I think if you're a very serious BCI person, like people at Neuralink or Precision Neuro, I don't know what they think about the outside the skull, like what kind of signals you're really getting. But let's see. It'll be
Yeah,
interesting.
I look forward to putting one of them on and seeing what kind of a difference it makes.
Yep.
So, in the world of generative AI, particularly cinematic AI, there was a new app called Magnific. And Magnific is a photo upscaler. There are many, many photo upscalers that are apps. They'll take pictures that you've taken and they'll, you can take your old pictures and make them less blurry. You can take new images created by AI and add more detail to them because, as we both know, a lot of those images cheat and put in little blurry things that aren't really readable in the background and so forth. So this is an app that cleans them up. There are several others that do this as well, but Magnific was super popular and embraced by over 700 users in just less than 5 months. They're based in
700 or 700,000.
700,000 in just five
There you
months,
go.
two-person team. Now, the founders are friends with Freepik, which is apparently just a couple of hours away from them on the coast of Spain, the Mediterranean coast of Spain. So it makes sense for the two companies to get together. Freepik has very well financed and has acquired a number of other generative AI companies from around the world. So they're kind of a consolidator at this point. But apparently, the Freepik guys are very happy. They'll be part of a much bigger team. They'll have much more liquidity. Although, apparently, they bootstrapped Magnific, and the amount of fees that they've collected is astronomical. So they must have gotten a pretty good deal. They obviously no details from a private deal, but still, it shows a lot of activity continuing in generative AI. I have something to say more to say about Sora in a minute. That is
Yep.
OpenAI's text to video tool. But this is a significant deal for people who are paying attention to this. Moving
Oh
on.
no, it's big.
Yeah, moving on. Roblox. Roblox results were in line with analysts. This is stock reporting season where all the big companies in on my beat, Metaverse, AI, XR, start to reveal their earnings. I have to say, I was feeling a little optimistic earlier this spring that maybe the metaverse winter was starting to break. But if you looked at Roblox, you would say maybe not so much. And they, along with Fortnite, are kind of the metaverse as we have been thinking about it. But they were absolutely hammered on weak guidance because, like a lot of the game industry, they lost momentum after the pandemic, and they were having a really, really hard time regaining it. I think more than any other industry, the games industry was ridiculously inflated by the pandemic, and they have no answer for reality afterwards. So it looks like it's going to be rocky road for the metaverse and for the game industry for the coming year.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie, it doesn't make sense. Like people were trapped at home; they couldn't go anywhere. It was like game all the time. And now we're like in the opposite. Like people want to get together, go to concerts, go to parties, just be together. And then, is that going to like reset and we'll have a new equilibrium where your pre-pandemic gaming habits, do they return, or is it something else that we don't know about yet?
It's funny how much we're still feeling the effects of the pandemic in so many different areas. But gaming in particular, as you point out, was something that people really embraced as a way of coping and spending time. And now they have other things to do. They've played plenty of video games, and now they have pent up demand for other activities. So it may be a while before the game industry recovers. But here's an interesting angle on that. Sandbox, I'm talking about the VR, location based VR company. I'm not talking about Sandbox, the metaverse. I'm talking about
Yes.
Sandbox VR, founded by Steve Zhao. It's a Hong Kong based company. They have, I don't know, 45 video game locations. I guess you would call them V-arcades. It's a free roam location. You wear a headset, you see the other people in the simulation as if they were avatars, and you're free to move around unencumbered by wires. It is quite extraordinary experience, truly sort of pure VR. But so many companies have tried and failed at this, including The Void, Dreamscape, and even Disney, as well as AMC Theaters, and much of that pretty recently. So the fact that they're making a deal with the Apparel Group to open 25 new locations, that'll give them 60 locations in the next couple of years, which far exceeds zero latency, which is the only other real survivor in the free roam VR sweepstakes.
It's
So
interesting. I think I don't look at this as VR as an entire field for time. I look at it as is the current embodiment of VR with the heavy headsets and the clunkiness. When you see like the best of the best, like the Vision Pro and VR and Meta 3, is it enough to get people to do this? We're hinting at the future. It's partially there, but people may just wait until all the issues we've talked about are resolved. Right? This is the open question. But it is encouraging to see groups like this hang on because those who survive will disproportionately win.
I've been
So I do think
very
it's also an endurance race.
I've been very, very skeptical of location-based VR ever since Disney Quest failed.
Mm.
The reason is there just aren't enough hours in the week. There aren't enough peak hours in the week to sell uh, location-based VR. And so it isn't any commentary on VR, it's more commentary on retail. So the fact that uh, somehow the sandbox has solved this is kind of, I'm still in a little bit of shock because the math just suggests that it's almost impossible. But they found the formula. I mean, they've got popular franchises like Star Wars and Squid Game, which they says has sold nearly $5 million in tickets. So maybe Sandbox is going to be the big winner, and there's just not room for a lot of other companies,
Well,
and they're going to be in every mall.
well, Charlie, one thread on that, like the idea that you have to go into a mall to a very particular place, I always found odd. Like one of the things we explored early in Magic Leap, and it was obviously early, was the idea that all malls, just the whole space, would become
Yeah,
digital physical space. Then it's not like I have to go to that particular place and put on a VR headset. It also implies that we've got a lightweight enough thing that my whole mall experience is just amazing. That I
This
think
is
is still
something
on the
that
table.
Snap has been talking about this for quite a while also, that you would
Yes.
have a location like a mall. That's where you would put on their new Snap specs, and the 3D would be integrated in sort of a mixed reality experience that is set throughout the entire location.
Shopping,
Yeah.
holidays, movie events. Like, but by the way, I think like the phone or the not quite there, 20-degree field of view snap glass. It's going to happen, I
Yeah.
think, when we hit like Ray-Ban Meta size weight with
Yeah.
like 90 plus degree field of view, 4K resolution. We're not far away from that. But
Uh,
when we hit that, I think
yeah.
you'll see a really interesting explosion of all these ideas finally tried again, but it'll work.
Yeah. I think that's true. Very true. So we'll hope that you and I are both alive then. Last thing before we get to, and there's a lot of news in the column
God willing, yeah.
my friend. So take a peek at it if you can, either on Forbes today or on AR Insider on Monday. Last item I want to talk about is I had an amazing conversation with director Paul Trillo. I ran into him at the Runway AI Film Festival several weeks ago here in LA, and he gave me an interview in which he discussed in depth how Sora works, or how he found working with Sora, rather, and how he was able to make the first commercial music video for Ernest Green, who is the performer, called Washed Out. And it's fantastic. It is an infinite dolly shot through the lives of two people. And it is something that could not have been made really using film without an incredible budget. And here he is, one guy who managed to make it. So I was
Yeah, I
at
watched it. I watched it this week, Charlie. It is a great video, and I think it shows that if you were a good director, a great director with a vision, you can make these tools do what you want, which is really neat.
it took him almost 800 generations to generate the 55 shots in the short video. It's about 4 minutes long, I think, 5 minutes long. Um, and I asked him what the prompts are like, right? How is it different than prompting a cinematic AI experience today, which you would do in very short shots, but Sora gives you much longer shots. And he showed me a prompt, it's linked to from the story, that is 1,200 words. And
Hmm.
what that prompt illustrates is how detailed an artist's pre-visualization needs to be in order to get a result like Paul got in the music video. So
It's like a script, right? I
it
mean,
is
it's like
so
being a good script writer.
the minute I saw that, I thought, oh my God, only directors and writers are going to be able to do this, because the depth of pre-visualization that it requires is unusual. And so people who have that talent, who don't have that as an obstacle, right, who can write 1,200 words quickly and use the right kind of descriptive and action words that Paul discovered in his trial and error, I think are going to have a lot of success. But you have to be able, that's the talent of a director. When you think about it, is their ability to pre-visualize the scene, to understand the colors, to understand the background, the lighting, how the camera is going to move. I mean, that is a discipline that you develop over years. So, those directors, it's funny. I mean, it's more and more clear that these tools are going to are going to give visual artists superhuman powers. And the idea that people are going to lose their jobs because of it, I think, is just nonsense. I think more artists are going to be making more great things than ever before. I mean, this is like people saying that computers were going to put everybody out of work. I just don't see that. Computers hugely boosted the productivity of individuals in the economy, and AI is going to do the same thing. I could be wrong,
But Charlie, do you see like a kid at USC or UCLA Film School or NYU having this, and now they can make an amazing student film that doesn't cost $10 million, but looks like it costs 10 million. Like that's really going to be interesting.
You know what excites me? The idea of somebody going to film school at the University of Florida, the University of Arizona, who doesn't have the Hollywood context that a place like USC Film School, or even, Chapman's Dodge Film School, where I teach. We're talking about people who don't have access to these tools, period, and don't have access to
Right.
the industry, period, right? Because the guys who are teaching them are local guys. They're not the sort of inside Hollywood people you get at USC and UCLA. But this puts them on an even playing field. So
Yes.
I think what we're going to be seeing is a lot of great short films from people all over the world that we've never heard of.
That's
So
actually quite exciting, right?
yeah, I think it
Like,
is exciting. I think it's mostly going to be short films. Sora is not going to make a big screen experience anytime soon, but I think we're going to be seeing amazing things on YouTube and on the social media channels that these kinds of tools are going to enable. I have no idea, by the way.
but you know it's okay. You know it's okay, Charlie. Like music videos were like the experimentation place early on in MTV for like visual effects directors and all kinds of trial and experimentation, and some of that floated into feature film. I think you'll see that here.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to infiltrate the workflows for special effects, animation, everything in movies. So it'll
Super
be,
exciting.
yeah, it's exciting. We'll see how quickly it plays out. Marta's in the green room. I just invited her in. So,
Hello.
hey,
Nice to meet
Marta.
you guys.
So you've got Charlie on video. It's lovely to meet you. And my colleague Rony Abovitz is in his car driving to yet another important meeting in Miami. As you may know, Rony is the founder of Magic Leap, and he has been the co-host of the podcast really at this point for a year and a half, almost 2 years. So anyway, welcome to the show. It's great to meet you.
Hey,
Nice to
Marta.
meet you too, guys. Thank you so much for the invite, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
I think I massacred your last name. So when I introduced you, so Marta, tell me how to pronounce your last name.
Yeah, it's very hard one. It's Polish. It's Marciszewicz.
I knew I had absolutely slaughtered it. So thank you for
That's
that.
okay. I
And
think
my
that
apologies when you
happens
listen to the podcast later and you hear me introduce you. I'm sure you will both cringe and laugh.
a lot. That's totally fine. I understand it's a bit hard one.
So I was telling Rony uh, when we were just at the top of the show about Anything World, the incredible animation system that you guys have invented. So why don't we start there and just talk about the context for this call, right? Why are we all so excited about Anything World, and what kind of skills or abilities does it bring to creators of video games and other media?
Sure. So, Anything World is a startup, I think fairly young and quite dynamically growing, I would say, that is aiming to help 3D content creators. And we are focusing currently on animation, like you mentioned, this one particular aspect of of 3D content creation. But we do have plans in the future to expand further to 3D models generation, behaviors generation, generally 3D world creation. So we have ambitious plans for the future. But at the moment, we decided to focus on this niche in the market, which was animation generation. Um, so the founding story of our company was that we have two founders, Gordon, which you I think had a
Yes,
chance
I
to meet.
Gordon Midwood, great guy,
Yes,
love it.
yes, exactly. He's hilarious. He's a web and games developer, and then we have also Seb, who is an artist. You can actually, if you ever walk around London, see some of his street artworks around. So we have one next to our office. It's a sculpture on the rooftop of a building, really cool to see if you're ever in London. Um, and then guys met during the development of one of their games, and they felt like creation of 3D models, rigging, and animation of them was very costly, very time consuming, and very problematic. And they thought that probably if they encounter this problem, there's many other developers of the games that also come across it. So that's where the idea for the company uh, was created to like help facilitate this process of animation generation and take that like process out of the take this need of generation of animations by the animators from the development process.
Sure,
So
there's a
mhm.
lot of friction around the creation of animation for video games outside of the main characters, right? So how do you create a world inside of a video game that's alive?
Exactly. And that's where we want to help out. So we created this pipeline that has multiple various steps. We try to understand what the 3D asset we get from the user and how it should be animated, what sort of animations it should perform, because of course the bird and the dog and the car, they all behave in a different way in the scene. So we have to have individual sets of animations for all those objects. So first step for us was to try to understand what it is that the user will want to have animated in their scene. Then we need to understand what the parts of the models are that we will be animating. Then we create a skeleton inside of it, and then animations are applied to this skeleton depending on the character type. So there's a lot of steps involved in creation of the animation, and it's very long process. It requires a lot of knowledge actually to understand how these models look like, how they behave in the real world, and then try to reflect it in an animation. That's a bit of like an analysis of the structure, of the biological structure, sometimes even of the models, to then create the animation for them. So this is a very lengthy process. This requires, like I mentioned, a lot of knowledge in this field, and we thought that a lot of game developers, they may not have that knowledge, and it would be very helpful for them if they can process the models and get them animated within a couple clicks, and then spawn their world, their scenes in the game with those animated models, animated non-player characters.
It occurs to me that Anything World is kind of attacking several pain points, right? Because first of all, you offer pre-rigged characters. These are characters that are already have the skeleton, if
Yes.
you will, inside them, and some of them even have animation already attached to them. So I might be able
Yeah.
to go get, for example, spaceships and have them land and take off in the background without being able to design a spaceship or code in any animation or other kinds of character rigging. So and then you offer, so your library is huge of pre-rigged characters. So no matter what your style is and no matter what your idea is, there's a good chance that Anything World already has it in their inventory. So you don't have to make it from scratch in Blender and then bring it into a game engine and then rig it and then animate it.
Yes, like you're totally correct, Charlie. We actually offer a couple different products. What you mentioned is the library that we offer for our users and customers, where they can search through thousands of models we already process through our pipeline and have available. And we daily process more and more models to like enlarge this set. But we also have another thing I think that we are most proud of these days, which is Animate Anything. It's this platform. You can see it on our webpage, Anything at World. And there you can find the tool where you can upload your 3D asset that you want to have in your game. So this particular object that suits your art style, for example, or the theme of your game. And then within couple minutes, couple easy steps that we walk you through, you get the model animated with multiple different animations applied. For humanoids, I think we have over 40 animations at the moment. So it's couple minutes, very easy, straightforward, no-brainer process for you to get any 3D model you want animated with our platform. And then, so that's the platform we offer on the web page, but we also have SDKs for the game engines, the main game engines like Unity or Unreal. So you can download our plugins, put them in your project, so you don't have to go between back and forth your project and the web page. You can just be inside of the games engine. And then we offer there the animation as well. So you just upload your file with the model, couple minutes, and you get your model animated into your scene. We also offer the search through the library of the models we already have. We have couple additional features like behaviors. So animation is one thing when the model is like looping the same action, let's say, in one position. But then we also offer sets of behaviors for different characters, like chasing, random walking, following some targets, etc. So it's not only that they loop the animation, but they also walk around the scene and have certain behaviors applied to them in couple clicks or couple lines of code, depending how the user prefers to use us. So that's another offering that we have inside of the SDK. And we also have something like AI Creator. This is a very early stage of the AI Creator for us, but this is a tool that is supposed to help you create the entire scene with your voice or text. So you type in a command like moving an object here and there, adding some assets, removing some assets, and they are spawning around your scene in the locations you choose for them. In the future, we want to add some more operations to this tool so that it's allowing further world creation. At the moment, it's just very few operations that we started from, but that's the AI Creator tool that is also a part of our packages for Unreal and Unity. And we also have a small addition that is environments where we created predefined scenes like underwater or city where you already have the entire scene with models spawned around it that you can use if you want to quickly prototype, for example, some game or something like that. So
Wow.
that's the SDKs we have. We also have a Blender add-on. If you're a fan of Blender and that's where you create your models, you can create the 3D asset in Blender and then using our add-on quickly animate it so you can present it to people already live and animated and performing some actions.
So
So
it's
we
it's
also
a
added that to our offering.
huge shortcut for character rigging, right? Which is an important step. But if you
Yes.
just
So
talked that into existence, we've been talking about this fantasy of bringing virtual worlds, speaking virtual worlds into existence, and it sounds like that's kind of what you're talking about, Marta.
Yes, exactly. That was our vision, I believe, from the beginning, to be able to, with no code, just text or speech, be able to create entire scene for the game. And we are working towards that goal. We started with the animation, and then this AI creator that is slowly developing with like early features at the moment. But yeah, our goal is definitely to allow this creation of entire scenes
so,
with voice, very simple one.
Marta, this is Rony. Question for you: if you're a listener, high school, college, a novice to making film, how long from playing with Anything World to making your first 3-minute short? How long do you think that takes, and what would be the tools they need besides for what you're providing?
Um, so because the behaviors we're providing in the moment, they are um, very often based on like random movement or chasing um, some targets, etc. For the main character of your movie, you would probably need to develop some further logic. What we can provide is all the entire background for you that you will probably not have to work at all on with the animations and
Okay.
behaviors we already provide. So I guess we try to enable the creators, like you mentioned, to focus a bit more on the more creative aspects, let's say, of your movie. You can focus on the main plot, on the main character, or on the development of this main logic, and do not pay that much attention to the entire background that you can create with those couple clicks. So, like downloading our SDKs, that's very easy, and I think we have a lot of docs that you can refer to on how to use them. So I think generation of the entire scene with our product can take you probably, it's a matter of minutes. And then you can focus on the main character, the main plot of your movie. And here, I guess you can put as much time into development as you feel like is needed.
So we're talking sort of indirectly, actually, you brought it up a minute ago about machine learning and AI and how they're being integrated into the Anything World platform. And you, in particular, have been working with that technology. So I'm interested in what you can tell us about how Anything World is applying AI and what your role is in doing that, and perhaps where you're going to take the AI inside of Anything World.
Sure. So our product is strongly based on AI. The entire pipeline that I described a couple minutes ago is developed with AI as a basis. Um, so I can't go super much into the details, but we do use some neural networks, for example. We try to approach the entire problem of the animation with this divide and conquer approach, so that we take this huge problem of having a static model and then animate it in multiple different ways with the behaviors that are matching the type of model, and we try to chop it into some smaller problems that we can solve in an easier way or like focus on separately. So like I was mentioning, we first try to understand what is the type of the model we get, then we try to understand the structure of it and create the skeleton and animations inside of it. So each one of these is a separate solution in our pipeline. We are actually thinking of allowing users to use each one of these separately. So if they are not interested in the entire process of animation, maybe they are just interested in getting a rig out of the algorithm. So we want to enable all these parts to be separately visible for the users to use. And the insights of the machine learning that we use in each of these parts are a bit of our company's secret, I believe. But like I said, we use a bit of in the machine learning generative algorithms. We really want to get into this side of the AI, which is the generation of 3D assets, generations of animations. Um, so I think the way we want to develop further the product is just add more 3D features related to our pipeline. Like the main mission of our company is to be in the center of everything 3D. That's why currently we're starting from the animation, but we want to build up new features, new modules, new blocks that will help us enable other elements like 3D meshes generations. So that would be like an input to what we currently have. Currently, the user needs to upload their mesh to our product, but in the future, we want to enable them to just type in the text or send a photo, and we will generate the 3D asset for them to put through the system and animate. And then also on the other end of our pipeline, we want to currently we have like a set of animations for categories that we allow the users to use, but we want to enable animation generations from text. So the user can put in text prompt or voice prompt, and we will try to modify this into an animation that they can use in their game. So that's another feature we're thinking of creating in the future from the AI perspective. And yeah, I think generative AI is the direction we are trying to go towards more.
A lot of my students are listening and they struggle sometimes to understand the difference between machine learning and AI, specifically generative AI. So I know your title is head of machine learning. So can you explain that? Doesn't have anything to do with anything world specifically, but rather just ways of thinking about this new technology.
Um, I think there's like you mentioned, my role is the head of machine learning, but this is, I think, just related with the algorithmic aspects of the artificial intelligence. Um, we are a very technical company, I would say, so there's a lot of coding involved in it, and I think that's where machine learning phrase is used more than data science, for example, that I believe is also a huge part of AI. It's just more like analysis of data and taking the taking the understanding the insights or figuring out some characteristics and obtaining information from the data. I mean, machine learning, we also use data, but we um, I think we focus more on like the building of the models, let's say.
Well, that's what's proprietary to you, right? But you're building it on top of an open source language model so that it can understand your queries.
And that would be when we introduce the additional features. So currently, the pipeline is working with the 3D models. We don't yet have text inputs. That would
Oh, I
come
see.
when we introduce the generative AI aspect. So the generation of the model from the text or generation of animation from the text. Currently, we take as an input 3D mesh, and we solely work with the 3D meshes. So the aspects of the machine learning we use at the moment are more related to computer graphics, I would say, uh, more to the 3D computer graphics.
So you are a young person. From stalking you on LinkedIn, I could see you've had some other work experience other than anything world, but you are in a position of great responsibility within that small company. So I think our listeners would probably be very interested in your personal story, right? What were you doing before you came to Anything World? What's your training? And what do you do every day? So, and of course, any advice you have for people breaking into the games industry, it's not a moment, of course, when the games industry is expanding the way it was during the pandemic, but it is still a business which is much larger than movies and music. So clearly it's not going away or going to shrink that much. So I'm really interested in your story and your perspective on the business and the market today.
Okay. So, like I started by doing bachelor's in computer science. Um, there I did have a little bit of artificial intelligence on one of the module, but that was like very, very basic aspect. And then I joined Samsung as a software engineer. I was working on a testing tool for one of the systems they used on watches. So that was pretty interesting work. And I think that gave me a lot of experience when it comes to the software engineering aspect. And then I moved to London and did the master's in artificial intelligence because that was like a, I think, very interesting topic at that moment that was growing in popularity, and I felt like this is the future I would like to see myself in. And after the masters, I joined Anything World, so that was my first position after, and I joined as an intern. Actually, I was one of the first 3 employees hired by Gordon and Seb. So I was growing with the company, and I went through, I think, all possible roles we had there. So I started as an intern, then I was a machine learning engineer. After I became a team manager, and then as we grew and got a bit more team members, I became the head of machine learning. So that's a bit of a background on that's a bit of my background. And I think I was working on the development of our product from like zero. Basically, when we joined first with 2 of my colleagues, Divya and Leo, we first had to figure out like what's the goal of our company and what do we want to achieve. And then we were, like I mentioned, breaking out the problem into some smaller problems that we can tackle, and then searching for solutions that are already out there, so we are not copying anybody's work, or we're not reinventing the wheel. And then we just started to build our code base, and I was one of the first engineers, so there was a lot of work for us to write the codes from the scratch for everything, and design the entire pipeline flow, create the system for it, they build the infrastructure. We are working with the Google Cloud system, so that's where majority of our code is running, and it all had to be designed and implemented. And yeah, there was just a lot of development work. I think majority of my tasks are related to coding these days as well. I believe our company has around 30 people at the moment, so majority of us are engineers. We are very strongly engineering company, and yes, we focus a lot on coding and implementation of the platform that we are providing the users with.
How many lines of how long have you been with Anything World in years?
That would be, I think, almost 5 years now. I joined in 2019, so right before the pandemic.
So you've been with them for 5 years. You guys have been writing code for 5 years, and now you've got a team of several dozen people. So how many lines of code do you think is in Anything World right now? Do you think it's 1 million lines?
um, I don't know if we reached a million, but we're definitely in many thousands. Actually, the best code is the one that has the least lines.
Yes,
So
of course.
Yeah, I was going to
we
say that. Yeah.
yeah, so we're trying to, when we do the code reviews, we're trying to actually reduce the lines and simplify the code so that it's easy to understand for newcomers, easy to modify, modular, etc. We try to reuse a lot of lines of code. So we try to not go into too many lines of code. But yeah, there was a lot of coding. There was a lot of networks training involved as well. This is quite a time-consuming process. I think the longest wait in machine learning is for the neural network to train and provide the output.
There's a great story, I'm sure you've heard it, about Steve Jobs and his partner Steve Wozniak, uh, very early in the history of Apple, maybe they were still a two-person company. He got Jobs got a job from Atari programming a very simple game, but the game had to be very small, very few number
Was
of.
it Breakout? Was it Breakout
Yeah,
Charlie?
I think it was Breakout. And so they said to Jobs, if you can do it with this number of lines of code, we'll give you a $500 bonus. And so he didn't tell that to Woz. He just gave Woz the specs, and the guy figured out how to do it, and then he kept the $500.
Yeah. That tells you a lot right there too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think they Woz did well enough that he can laugh about that story today. But
Yeah,
just apropos to your comment that good coding is doing more with less, not writing more bulky lines of code, which of course can get unwieldy and difficult to manage. And of course, if you have a bug or a problem, makes it harder to fix.
yes, exactly. Like a very good feature of the code is if the code is modular. So if you have a lot of parts of the code that you can reuse in the future or in many of the places. So we try to keep those standards and keep the code modular, and yeah, that helps with the maintenance, like you mentioned. We actually have a special engineer that is supposed to help us optimize the code as well. So we are trying to really keep the code base clean and manageable and optimized as much as possible.
Well,
Very cool.
this has been a fascinating conversation and a look behind the scenes of a company that is providing real products and services to the industry. I have a couple questions about that, but we do need to wrap up here. Time goes fast on this show, as I told you, Marta. Marta was
That's
worried.
true.
Marta was worried that we weren't going to have things to talk about, or that I was going to ask hard questions. And I encouraged her to listen to the podcast because we really don't have a list of questions. We kind of just start talking and see where it goes. So I said my advice to Marta and other guests who aren't maybe necessarily had media training as people like Rony and I have, but I said think ahead about what you want to say, and no matter what we ask you, say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was actually a great advice. Like you mentioned, I don't have any media training, so getting that advice from you was actually a great preparation enough for the show.
So I guess my question is, did you say it, or have we walked all over you? Is there something you want to say that you thought of in advance that we kind of have talked our way away from?
Well, I did had some other topics that I thought we may come across, like for example, there is this some negative comments I came across regarding machine learning taking away jobs and taking away the creative aspects of games development. And I here wanted to maybe mention that I try to encourage everyone to treat AI as a tool more than the replacement or a thing that is going to steal somebody's intellectual property or job. And yeah, that's maybe the point that I also wanted to mention before, because I feel like whenever we mention AI in our product, there's a bit of a fear related to it, and there's nothing to be afraid of. It's a great tool that can help people speed up their development process and create more in the same amount of time and just make the work easier rather than take it away from anyone.
I think people mistake disruption for destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are in a very disruptive moment where jobs are going to change, just as they did when computers were introduced,
Exactly.
just that they did when any other major new technology has been introduced, like the internet. So people have not lost their jobs because of it, but jobs have changed and new jobs are created, and old jobs which are obsolete go away. So that is terrifying when you think that one of those jobs may be yours. But how exciting to be a young person today and have these tools that elevate you and allow you to do work that would have previously been done by a much more experienced employee. So
Exactly.
it levels the playing field. It makes a good programmer a great programmer, and it makes an ambitious young person somebody who can keep up with that programmer. So I think it's exciting times, particularly for people in technology, but also people who are not in technology have nothing to fear because it's going to become more and more accessible and easier to use and easier to understand. That's already happening. So I think it's an exciting time, but I get why people are scared. It is a moment of disruption, and everybody is wants to know what that means for them.
Yes, I totally agree with what you mentioned. I have the very same view that the AI is supposed to help and make work easier. And of course, there might be some modifications in job positions, but I think it's an exciting time, like you said.
We have been vilifying AI so long in the media that I think we have actually trained people to be distrustful of just the word because it's like associated with like the Terminator.
I think there's a little bit of this flow that maybe was stirred by the media, but I try to encourage everyone I come across to think a bit more about AI as a tool instead of as a friend more than a foe.
Charlie, can I give a last comment on that? I've been listening to it, and I think, for all of our listeners, AI is a gigantic amplifier of us. So if you bring a good attitude to it, if you want to do something creative with it, it's an amazing amplifier. If you want to do horrible, bad things, it somehow lets you do that too. So I think we're the issue, not the AI. But it is, unlike many other tools, it is this amazing mirror-like amplifier of the worst and best of who we are. So I think when you do play with AI, you need to really check yourself and go, who am I? What am I doing? What am I up to? Because all of it comes across. I think that's the thing that we're scared most. It's a very intense mirror.
Yeah. That's a great place for us to end. Thank you for that, Rony. Marta, it was fantastic to meet you and chat with you, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other in the real at one show or another. I see Gordon. We saw each other at GDC, the Game Developers Conference. So hopefully it won't be too long before we're together in the real. I would love to meet you, and it would be great to see Gordon and the other members of the team again. So that's Anything World. For computer animation and pre-rigged characters or technology that can rig your characters straight from Blender into game engines. So really, really interesting company. They've raised $13 million, I think. So we'll be following closely. Good luck to you. Thanks everybody for listening. And that is our show for this week.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
everyone.
so much. It was great to meet you guys, and it was great to be the part of your podcast. Thank you so much for inviting us and your interest in Anything World.
Thank you, Marta. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Bye bye.